He told her, go first. She sent the sister, and he expected that. Why?
She screamed from the darkness, sharp, choking, like something grabbed her mid-breath. And my husband didn't move. We were standing at the top of his basement stairs, the door he'd kept locked, our entire marriage finally open, nothing but pitch black below us. He told me to go first, calm, cold, like it was already decided, like I didn't have a choice. So I smiled and sent his sister instead. She hesitated just for a second, but he didn't stop her, didn't warn her, didn't even look surprised when she disappeared into the dark. Then the scream came. I turned to him, waiting for panic, anything but his face didn't change. And that's when I realized this wasn't an accident. And I don't think I was ever supposed to come back up. For a second, I thought maybe he was in shock, that maybe the scream hadn't registered yet. But Ethan didn't blink, didn't lean forward, didn't call her name. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. He just stood there beside me, one hand still resting on the basement door like this was normal. Mara just screamed. I said, my voice coming out tighter than I expected. She could be hurt. Nothing. His eyes stayed fixed on the darkness below, like he was listening for something more important than her voice. 10 seconds passed, maybe 15. Too long. I stepped closer to the top stair, peering into the black, but it swallowed everything. No movement, no shape, just absence. Mara, I called out, louder this time. No answer. I turned back to Ethan. We need to go down there. That's when he finally looked at me. Not panicked, not concerned, measured, like he was assessing me. You wanted her to go first, he said quietly. The words landed wrong, not like an accusation, more like a reminder. My stomach tightened. You told me to go first. And you didn't, he replied. Something about the way he said it flat, almost curious, made the air feel heavier. Behind us, the rest of the house was silent. No TV, no background noise. Just the faint creak of the floor under our weight and that open door behind him, leading down into something I still didn't understand. I tried to steady myself. She could be injured. We don't even know what's down there. A pause. Then he said, she knew enough. That made me freeze. What does that mean? But he didn't answer. His gaze drifted past me for a second, toward the hallway, toward the rest of the house, then back to the basement, like he was keeping track of everything at once. I started replaying the last few minutes in my head. The way he unlocked the door without a word. The way Mara had gone quiet the second he said, go first. The hesitation before she stepped forward. And now this. You said she knew, I pressed. Knew what? Ethan exhaled slowly, like he was deciding how much to say. This house has rules, Naomi. Rules. I almost laughed, but it caught in my throat. Since when? Since before you moved in. That hit harder than it should have. Because he wasn't joking. All the times I'd asked about the basement, all the times he'd brushed it off, changed the subject, told me it was just storage, just old junk, nothing worth seeing. That had been a lie. Mara's still down there, I said, sharper now. Stop talking like this is some kind of lesson. We need to help her. I reached for the door, but the second my fingers touched the edge, Ethan's hand came down over mine. Not rough, but firm enough to stop me. Don't, he said. I looked up at him. Move. For a moment, neither of us did. And then, from below, a sound. Not a scream this time. Something slower. Heavier. Like something being dragged across the floor. My breath caught. That's not her, I whispered. Ethan didn't answer. But I felt it, the shift. Whatever calm he'd been holding on to, it wasn't quite as steady now. Still controlled, but thinner. Like something underneath was starting to push through. I pulled my hand back from under his and stepped away from the door. What is down there? I asked again, more quietly this time. He finally looked at me fully. And for the first time since this started, there was something else in his expression. Not fear. Not guilt. Expectation. Like he'd been waiting for me to ask that the right way. She made a choice, he said. Same as you. My chest tightened. I didn't choose this. You chose not to go. Another dragging sound echoed up from the basement, closer this time, or maybe just louder. I glanced back at the stairs, my pulse starting to race. "Mara," I called again, louder, sharper. "If you can hear me, say something." Silence. Then, a faint thud, followed by what sounded like a weak, broken inhale. She was still alive. I turned back to Ethan, adrenaline spiking. "We're not standing here anymore. I'm going down." But this time, he didn't stop me immediately. He just watched me. Too calm again. Too still. And then he said, almost gently, "If you go down there now, you don't get to come back the same." That made me hesitate. Just for a second. And in that second, something cold slid into place in my mind. Because that wasn't concern. That was a warning. I looked past him, toward the hallway, toward the front door, the windows, every exit in the house, and for the first time since the scream, I felt it clearly. This wasn't just about the basement. It was about control, about choices, about making sure I made the wrong one. Behind us, the darkness shifted again, or maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me. But the sound came back, closer, slower, deliberate, and this time, Ethan reached for the door and started to close it. "Don't close that door." The words came out sharper than I intended, cutting through the silence just as Ethan's hand paused mid-motion on the handle. For a second, neither of us moved. Then he slowly looked back at me, his expression unreadable again, but there was something tighter in it now, something controlled. "You're not ready," he said. "Ready for what?" I shot back. "Your sister is down there." Another faint sound echoed up the stairs, this time unmistakable. A weak, uneven scrape, followed by a breath that sounded like it hurt to take. Mara, alive, and struggling. I stepped forward again, but Ethan shifted just enough to block the doorway completely. Not aggressive, not rushed, deliberate. "We wait," he said. My stomach twisted. "For what?" But he didn't answer that. Instead, he glanced down toward the darkness again, like he was tracking something I couldn't see. That was when it hit me. This wasn't panic. This wasn't confusion. This was expectation. "You knew this would happen," I said slowly. His eyes flicked back to mine, and he didn't deny it. A chill crept up my spine. "Ethan," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady, "what is this?" He exhaled, like he'd been holding something in for a long time. "It's not what you think." "Then explain it." Another pause. Then, quietly, she wasn't supposed to go first. There it was, clear, direct, and somehow worse than anything else he could have said. I stared at him. "So you admit it." "I'm saying," he continued, calm as ever, "that this wasn't meant for her." My chest tightened. "It was meant for me." He didn't answer. He didn't have to. The silence between us confirmed it more than words ever could. Behind him, the basement let out another low, dragging sound closer now, or maybe just louder in my head. I shook my head, trying to ground myself. "You told me to go first. You expected me to just, what? Walk into that?" "Yes." No hesitation. No shame. Just a single flat word. Something inside me shifted. All the small things I'd ignored over the past 3 years started lining up too cleanly, too perfectly. The way Ethan always decided things without asking. The way I slowly stopped arguing because it was easier. The way this house never really felt like mine. And the basement. Always locked, always off limits. I remembered the first time I asked about it not long after moving in. "Just storage," he'd said. "Nothing worth seeing." But there had been something in his tone even then. Something final. Like it wasn't up for discussion. "You've been planning this," I said. He tilted his head slightly. "Planning is a strong word." "Then what would you call it?" "A test." The word hung there, cold, precise. I let out a short, disbelieving breath. "A test?" "Yes." Another sound from below, this time a dull thud, followed by a strained exhale that made my skin crawl. Mara was still down there, still dealing with whatever this was. And he was standing here, explaining it like it was a theory. "You don't get to call it that," I said, my voice tightening. "You sent someone into a pitch-black basement and wait to see what happens." "I didn't send her," he corrected calmly. "You did." The words hit exactly where he meant them to. I felt it immediately, that twist of doubt, of guilt trying to force its way in, but it didn't stick because I remembered his voice. Go first. I made a decision, I said, holding his gaze, because something about this was wrong, and you knew it. He studied me for a moment, like I'd just proven something, or maybe failed. It's interesting, he murmured. My stomach dropped. What is? You didn't hesitate. I blinked. What? You smiled, he continued. You redirected. You protected yourself without asking questions. Each word felt like it was being placed carefully, deliberately. Not an observation. An evaluation. That's what this is about, I said. You're analyzing me right now? I'm understanding you. Another scrape from below, louder now, unmistakably closer to the base of the stairs. Mara! I shouted again, my voice cracking this time. Say something! A weak, broken sound came back, barely a word, more like a breath forced into shape. I couldn't make it out, but it was enough. I moved toward the door again. I'm done with this. We're getting her out. This time, when Ethan blocked me, there was no mistaking it. He wasn't just standing there. He was stopping me. You're interfering, he said. With what? I snapped. With the outcome. I stared at him. She could be seriously hurt. She agreed to be here. That made me freeze. Agreed, I repeated. Agreed to what? But Ethan didn't respond immediately. Instead, his gaze drifted past me, toward the kitchen, toward the counter, where his phone was sitting, face up, screen lit, and for just a second, I caught it. A live video feed. Black and grainy, but moving. My breath caught. You're watching it, I said slowly. Ethan's eyes flicked back to mine. Neither of us spoke. But I didn't need him to confirm it. There were cameras down there. Multiple, judging by the flicker of shifting angles on the screen. This wasn't just something he built. It was something he monitored. Documented. Controlled. You've been recording this, I said. Not a question. A statement. Ethan didn't deny it. Another sound rose from the basement, closer than ever now. A hand, weak, trembling, slapped against the bottom step, just barely visible from where I stood. Mara. She was trying to climb up. I stepped forward instinctively, but Ethan moved faster. And this time, he shut the basement door completely. And I heard the lock click. She's still down there. The words came out low, controlled, but my hands weren't. They were shaking as I stared at the closed door, at the thin line where darkness used to spill through. Ethan didn't turn around. I know, he said. That was it. No urgency, no movement toward the handle, just acknowledgement. Something inside me snapped into focus. You locked her in, I said. I secured the environment, he corrected. I let out a short, disbelieving breath. She's hurt. She's responding, he replied. That matters more. I turned to face him fully now, trying to read anything human in his expression. Responding to what? But deep down, I already knew the answer. Fear, he said. Of course. Another silence settled between us, but this one felt heavier, charged with something that was finally starting to surface. You expected me to be down there, I said. Ethan didn't hesitate. Yes. The word landed clean. No apology. No hesitation. And Mara? I asked. What, she just stands up here and watches? A slight pause. Then, she observes. I shook my head slowly. You're talking about this like it's structured. It is. That one word shifted everything. Because now it wasn't just something twisted, it was intentional. Repeated. How many times? I asked. Ethan's gaze sharpened slightly. That's not relevant. It is to me. Another pause. Then he said, enough to understand patterns. A cold feeling spread through my chest. Patterns? You've done this before, I said. He didn't answer directly, but he didn't deny it either. That was enough. I glanced toward the kitchen again, toward his phone still glowing faintly on the counter. Show me, I said. Ethan followed my gaze. No. I'm not asking. I moved past him before he could react, crossing the hallway quickly. My pulse was loud in my ears, every step feeling heavier than it should. Naomi, he said, sharper now. But I was already at the counter. I grabbed the phone, And the moment I looked down at the screen, I froze. The footage was grainy, night vision green, multiple angles, different corners of the basement. It wasn't empty. It was constructed. Narrow pathways, uneven flooring, sharp turns that disappeared into deeper darkness, sections that looked almost identical, designed to disorient. And there, Mara. She was on the ground, half curled, one hand gripping her ankle. Her face was pale, eyes wide, darting in every direction like she couldn't tell where she was anymore. She tried to push herself up, failed, and let out a strained sound that barely reached the microphone. My throat tightened. She fell, I said. Yes. You knew she would. I anticipated it. I looked up at him, anger rising fast now. You built something people can't even walk through. It's not meant to be easy. It's not meant to be survivable, I snapped. That's not true. I looked back down at the screen. Mara was moving again, slow, unsteady, dragging herself forward, one hand reaching out into empty space, like she was trying to find a wall that wasn't there. Help me, she whispered, her voice barely audible through the speaker. My grip tightened around the phone. She agreed to this, I asked. Ethan stepped closer, his voice still calm, but there was tension under it now. She understood the purpose. That's not what I asked. She knew what the basement was. I turned to him. Did she know she could get trapped? Hurt? Left down there while you watched? A flicker, small but real, crossed his face. She knew enough, he said again. That phrase. The same one from before. Vague, controlled, carefully incomplete. I looked back at the screen. Mara had stopped moving. Not because she wanted to, because she couldn't. Her breathing was shallow now, uneven. And then, suddenly, she turned her head sharply, like she heard something. My eyes scanned the rest of the feed. Nothing. Just darkness, stillness. Then, a sound. Not from Mara, from somewhere deeper in the basement. A low, metallic shift. Slow, deliberate. Mara froze. So did I. What is that? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Ethan didn't answer. I looked up at him, and for the first time, he didn't look completely in control. It was subtle, just a slight tightening in his jaw. A flicker of something uncertain behind his eyes. You said this was controlled, I said slowly. You said you understood the patterns. I do. Then what was that? Silence. Another metallic sound echoed through the phone speaker louder this time. Mara let out a broken sob. I don't want to do this anymore, she whispered. The words hit harder than the scream. Because this time, they were clear. I turned back to Ethan, opened the door. He didn't move. Ethan. She hasn't finished. My stomach dropped. Finished what? He looked at me, really looked this time. And there it was again. That same evaluating expression. Like he was watching two things at once now. Mara on the screen. And me. She hasn't reached the point yet, he said. What point? But he didn't answer. Instead, his gaze flicked down to the phone in my hand, then back up to my face. And his voice dropped slightly. You weren't supposed to see this part. A cold wave washed over me. What part? I asked. Ethan held my gaze for a long second. Then, quietly, the part where people stop pretending. Another metallic shift echoed from the basement. Closer. And this time, even Ethan looked toward the door. That sound shouldn't have surprised him. But it did. I saw it the exact moment Ethan's certainty slipped. His head turned just a fraction too quickly toward the basement door, his jaw tightening like something had just gone off script. You said this was controlled, I said, my voice low but steady. So why does it sound like something's changing? It's part of it, he replied, but it came a second too late. Too rehearsed. I held up the phone slightly, the live feed still flickering between angles. Mara hadn't moved much, but her eyes were locked in one direction, now wide, fixed, terrified of something I still couldn't see. She hears it too, I said. Ethan didn't respond. Whatever that is, I continued, you didn't expect it to happen like this. His gaze snapped back to me. I expected variation, not uncertainty. A pause. Then, quieter, not this soon. There it was. The first real crack. I took a slow breath, forcing my thoughts into place. Everything around me, his calm, the basement, the cameras, it wasn't random. It was designed, but not perfectly. You built something you can't fully control, I said. I understand it. No, I shook my head slightly. You understand how people react inside it. That's not the same thing. Another metallic shift echoed through the phone louder now, followed by a hollow thud that made Mara flinch violently on screen. She tried to move again, dragging herself backward this time, away from whatever she thought was coming. Please, she whimpered. I don't want to do this anymore, Ethan. Please. He didn't react to his name. Didn't even blink. But his hand just slightly tightened at his side. I saw it. You told her this was a test, I said. You made her believe she had control. She did, he replied. She's begging you. She's reacting. The detachment in his voice made something cold settle deeper in my chest. You're not even hearing her anymore, are you? I'm observing. I stared at him. You locked your own sister in a place like that? She agreed to participate. You keep saying that like it means something. It does. No, I said. Sharper now. It means you told her just enough to get her down there. Another sound closer now, heavier rolled through the basement feed. Mara let out a sharp cry and tried to pull herself up again, slipping, barely catching herself on the uneven floor. And that's when I saw it. Not clearly, but enough. One of the camera angles flickered just for a second and something passed through the edge of the frame. Not a person, not anything defined, just movement. Low, fast, close to the ground. My breath caught. What is that? I demanded. Ethan didn't answer. He was staring at the phone now too. Really staring, like he was trying to understand something in real time. You said there were patterns, I pressed, so explain that. Another flicker. Another movement. This time, Mara saw it too. She screamed again, but it wasn't the same as before. This one had recognition in it. Pure, immediate terror. It's not supposed to. Ethan stopped himself. I turned to him instantly. Not supposed to? What? Silence. He exhaled slowly, recalibrating. It's not what you think. You keep saying that, I snapped. So, start explaining. But instead of answering, he looked at me again. That same measured look, only now, it felt different. Sharper. More focused. You redirected the test, he said. My stomach dropped. What? You changed the sequence. I sent her first because you told me to go, I shot back. And that matters, he said. How? Another metallic sound rang out louder than before, followed by a sudden, violent crash from the basement that made both of us flinch. On the screen, Mara cried out as something shifted near her, something structural this time. A panel? A barrier? I couldn't tell. But it wasn't random. It was part of the system. And it had just activated. You said this place reacts, I said, piecing it together. To movement, to fear. Ethan didn't respond. So what happens when the wrong person goes down first? That made him go still. Completely still. The answer was already there. Written all over his face. You don't know, I said. It wasn't a question. For the first time since this started, Ethan Carter didn't have control. Another scream tore through the speaker as Mara tried to crawl away from whatever was closing in around her. Panels shifting, paths changing, the space itself tightening. She's going to get trapped, I said. She already is, he replied quietly. I turned toward the basement door, my pulse surging. Then open it. She hasn't reached the end. I don't care about your test. You should. That stopped me. I looked back at him. And this time, there was no calm left in his expression. Just intensity. You still think this is about her, he said. It is about her. No, he shook his head slowly. It's about you. A cold silence followed. You were supposed to go first, he continued. You were supposed to experience it without influence, without interference. And I didn't. Yes. Another pause. Then you adapted. I stared at him. You mean I didn't blindly walk into whatever that is? You avoided it, he said, without understanding it. My grip tightened around the phone. And now? I asked. Ethan held my gaze. Longer this time. More deliberate. Now we see what you do next. Another crash echoed from below. Mara screamed again, cut short this time, like something had forced the air out of her lungs. I turned toward the basement, then back to Ethan. And in that moment, everything locked into place. The door, the cameras, the recordings, my choice, Mara's role, all of it. You were never just testing reactions, I said slowly. Ethan didn't respond. But he didn't look away either. You were setting me up, I continued, from the beginning. Silence. Then a faint smile. Small. Controlled. Confirming. My chest tightened. How many people have you sent down there? I asked. Ethan paused. Just for a second. Then he said, You're the first who didn't go. And behind the door, something slammed hard enough to shake the frame.
So tell me, was this a test? Or was he planning something much worse all along?